And even this potential impending arrest of Trump is another example of that, because, look, it claims Trump concealed alleged hush payments that were supposedly used to violate federal election laws using legal expenses. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to use legal expenses.
That's the key phrase, legal expenses, yeah.
Okay, so Clinton was fined by the Federal Election Commission for funding the Steele dossier using illegal expenses.
Yeah.
So that's interesting,
Seems
isn't
pretty
it?
similar. It's just not as, doesn't sound as dodgy, does it?
It's not so salacious.
Correct.
Because Trump's one has a porn star in it, and that one's got a dossier. Ooh, a dossier. And dossiers famously require sexing up, like the dossier that was used to underwrite the illegal invasion of Iraq.
Now, I raised this comparison when we talked about this story yesterday, I think, in A Block, and I think that there's a real point here. Hillary Clinton was fined $8,000 by the FEC for payments inappropriately used to do research on the Steele dossier. The DNC was fined $105,000, no insignificant sum. And the dossier, remember the posture of it. It was released days before Trump was to be inaugurated in 2017. It was the basis for a lot of Democratic theories about why Trump was unfit to be president. Statements which today might be characterized as election denial in the current kind of media context, and which, of course, have been proven to be
largely discredited. This was a tremendously impactful and flawed piece of intelligence that the media took it and ran with it to accuse Trump of being utterly compromised by Russia. It was used to bolster the idea, well, this is why Russia, remember at the time the media was getting all into the idea that Russia had gone, you know, to the mat to help elect Donald Trump by their interference on social media. Mark Zuckerberg was starting to be the most hated man in America by American liberals because he allowed Facebook to be overtaken by all these bots. Again, a lot of this has turned out to be nothing burgers over and over and over again. But the Steele dossier was that this is the reason Russia was willing to do this, because Trump is a puppet of Putin, and the infamous P tape is alluded to in the dossier, the Steele dossier. So a lot of very harmful, very impactful, largely discredited information that Hillary Clinton helped pay for. You can see, you could make a case why that should actually be treated more seriously, if anything, than the personal hush payment to Stormy Daniels, which we all found out about anyway. Right,
in which ostensibly served the purpose of protecting Donald Trump's marriage more so than any broader political motives. But look, also there's this question of, even if we accept bad action by Donald Trump and accept bad action for Hillary Clinton, what is the rationale for the penalty for Hillary Clinton being not locking her up, but this monetary fine, the $8,000 for Hillary Clinton personally, was a relatively modest amount? And do we really believe that what Donald Trump has been accused of doing here justifies arresting a former president of the United States, a current Republican presidential candidate and frontrunner, instead of saying, here's the potential financial penalty as a consequence of what you've done?
And I saw Tucker make this point on his show the other day, and I think this is a valid point, which goes to show that Tucker is perfectly willing to call out Republicans when he disagrees with them, as he particularly does on foreign policy, because he, parting ways with the old neocon consensus. He said, if we're re-examining the records of former Republican presidents, George W. Bush, look, I know he's been redeemed by some liberals because he gets along with Michelle Obama. I think that's cute, too. I enjoy the man's temperament. I know you don't. I enjoy the man's temperament, but his policies, specifically the Iraq War, which we are now actually this week recognizing the 20th anniversary of, was a disastrous policy that destabilized the Middle East, led to thousands and thousands and thousands of deaths of Iraqis. Based on information that was turned out to be totally inaccurate. I mean, the kindest framing of this whole thing is that our officials just got it wrong. And that's what some people think. And then the harsher framing is that they deliberately lied us into this, that whole thing, without even passing judgment on whether it was deliberate or it was nefarious. It was a catastrophic mistake that we are paying for to this day. What has happened in the Middle East, the growth of organizations like ISIS, et cetera, the spread of terrorism, the destabilizing effect tremendous based on that policy. And it's some, I guess it wasn't illegal because it was just, certainly you can make a case, and people have made a case for various aspects of it being illegal, but it was whatever. It was a horrible policy choice that we still have to live with. And the accountability for that is nowhere near the accountability that I guess Donald Trump is going to face.
Absolutely.
Because maybe his attorney paid off someone he might have had an affair with.
Absolutely.
And that seems pretty small ball compared to that.
Yeah, well, look, I think that George Bush example.
A war that Hillary Clinton voted for, by the way.
Yeah.
We're spreading blame around.
100%. And I think that the George Bush example is really excellent. We're 20 years out from the beginning of the war in Iraq. We are 1 year out almost from that unforgettable George W. Bush gaffe. Do you remember when he was talking about the war in Ukraine? And he said, quote, "The decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of Iraq, Ukraine."
Let's play it. I think we can get it, right? Let's play it.
Yeah.
Russian elections are rigged. Political opponents are imprisoned or otherwise eliminated from participating in the electoral process. The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine. Iraq, too. Anyway, 75.
Ha ha, it is to laugh.
Yeah, the opposite of accountability is being able to use your war crimes as a punchline for a joke 20 years later. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's not that can't be true and Donald Trump can't also be held accountable. Just because Hillary Clinton wasn't held accountable doesn't mean that it's unfair for Donald Trump to be held accountable. Mm-hmm. But honestly, if we care about public trust, if we care about consistency, if we care about our authority both domestically and internationally with how we handle these kinds of things, it's hard to see this as anything other than a political persecution.
Right, and if ultimately it is to be left to Democratic forces and Democratic accountability to reject political figures, shouldn't that just be the case in Trump's case too? George W. Bush, he was reelected, and then his appointed kind of successor of his ideology, John McCain, was defeated at the ballot box. Hillary Clinton was defeated at the ballot box. I don't actually think Hillary Clinton should be put in prison. Probably, I understand why it's banana republic stuff to just always jail the former leader, but there's a perception that Trump is different, or that the apparatus of the state will behave differently with Trump. And he has been defeated at the ballot box, and he can be defeated that way through the democratic process. And let's be very careful and very thoughtful about really going, forward with something that is outside democratic accountability when that has been shown to be able to constrain him.
Yeah, and look, if you steal diapers, you get thrown in jail.
Yeah.
If you are the architect of the housing crisis, you don't see any jail time. And so there is a balancing act between not wanting to make this seem like a support of partisan prosecutions, at the same time that there needs to be some more balance about the people who are causing the greatest amount of theft, wealth theft. The biggest, I believe the stat is that the largest kind of personal wealth theft in the country is wage theft. Employers just don't pay their employees, and there's very little an employee can do about it, given that they don't have access to lawyers and the like, the way that their employers and corporations do. And that definitely we need to take a closer look at how to create equality there. Rich people absolutely do need to be serving jail time. We don't need to, I once overheard a judge say about a affluent white-collar defendant, jail is worse for people like him. Mm-hmm. We live in a world where people think it's worse for people like Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, and corporate folks to go to jail. There is a bigger gap between what their life is like outside of jail and inside of jail because they're affluent outside of jail. But that doesn't mean a poor person deserves to be in jail and have their liberty taken from them anymore. So we'll continue to follow this story, and we'll have more Rising for you right after this.